So everybody who's buying should have a buyer's agent. Let's talk about that.
What is a buyer's agent? Basically, a buyer's agent is a realtor or real estate agent that represents the buyer. That's pretty simple, right? But it's kind of confusing. In real estate, there's two parties. There's the person buying the house and there's the person selling the house. Typically, the person selling the house, the agent, represents the seller, and they only represent the seller.
And their name and number is the name and number on the sign outside of the property. They work for the seller, so they have the seller's best interest at heart, not the buyer.
Correct. So if you're into sports, you know, they're sports agents, right? The agent for the player is trying to get the player the most money possible, and they're trying to get them the best deal. Now, the team negotiates against them to try to get the contract as low as possible in the team's favor. And that's the same idea here, is that there is an agent for the buyer and an agent for the seller. But sometimes that seller's agent, say you drive by and you see the sign of some house and you're interested in it and you call the number on that sign, that agent responsibility and their job is to get as much information out of you for the seller as possible. So if you say, oh, I love this house, I have to have it, I'll pay $200,000 for it, and say it's only listed at $190,000. Well, that agent is going to tell the seller, the owner of that house, that information. And so now you're in an awful negotiating position. That's an awful thing to do. Do not call a sign and tell them anything about your money. To avoid that, you want to, when you know that you're looking to buy a house, you want to contact an agent. So we work as listing and buying agents depending on the situation. So it's not like, oh, I only do buyers or I only do listings. So you would contact an agent, say us, for example, and we will set up the showings for you, and we will communicate with that agent and make sure that we're negotiating on your behalf. We make it happen. So once you make a decision on what you want, we're going to negotiate to get you the best terms possible. The way I like to negotiate is to ask my client, what can they live with? And then give me the freedom to negotiate for them. So for example, if they're willing to buy the house for $180,000 and the house is listed at $200,000, maybe I'll start and feel out the agent depending on what the comps are from our previous conversation. Then we will maybe start at $170,000 and negotiate from there. Now, it's not just about price. There's a lot of small factors and from experience on the feeling that you get with the other agent on how to negotiate. So basically, it depends on the situation, but I'm going to try to get them as much as possible. I know you had a situation with an inspection where you got them more than what they wanted before.
Okay, yes. So there was a home inspection, and I was the listing agent, so I was working for the seller. And the buyer's agent said, we want $3,000 off the purchase price because we found this, this, and this at the home inspection. So my seller wanted to say, hey, give them $2,000 and call it a day. So I said, from what I've seen from the home inspection, it was not $2,000 worth of repairs that they needed done. So I said, let me take care of it. I'll start lower, but I know that you will only go to $2,000. So I winded up, it was like $800 that the buyer winded up accepting an $800 credit instead of what my seller wanted to give, a $2,000 credit. So that's where your agent, really comes in handy.
And that's where the value is when you do have an agent representing you, is that we do know what we're talking about. If you let us execute on what we know, we'll usually get you a pretty good deal, or actually all the time. Okay, so let's summarize here. There's two parties to every transaction. There is the buyer and the seller. Now, the buyer should have an agent and the seller should have an agent. That's not always the case. Sometimes the seller has an agent and you don't have anyone representing you. Do not do that.
A buyer should always have an agent, a seller should always have an agent, and they should always be two different people.
So, if you have questions about agency or any real estate questions, leave a comment below. That's it. So like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, I'm like, bye guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Till next time.
Somebody from the 60s?
See you later.